I'm Angela Kerndl, and this is True Crime Rocket Science.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. If there's any truth whatsoever in Laurie's texts, it's in her statement to Charles's kids, where she says on more than one occasion, "I'm still not sure how to handle things." On July 12th at 4:36 p.m., a Friday, that is the day after Charles was killed, Laurie wrote, "Hi boys, I have very sad news. Your dad passed away yesterday. I'm working on making arrangements and I'll keep you informed with what's going on." And here it comes. "I'm still not sure how to handle things. Just want you to know that I love you and so did your dad." Do you believe her when she says that? Do you believe that she wasn't sure how to handle things? Now, if it was a case of premeditated murder and with a particular outcome, wasn't the way she wanted to handle that she wanted to get the insurance money and get married to Chad? So obviously, or not obviously, but allegedly, that is not true. She did know how to handle things, right? On July 12th at 8:20 p.m., well, around about that time, she's asked sort of indignantly and with righteous indignation, what happened? You can't just tell us Dad died and disappeared. You're not too busy to let us know he died and disappeared, so tell us what happened. Then a follow-up email, a follow-up text. "It's been 3 hours. You're not that busy. I don't care what you're doing." And then a response. And again, one kind of gets the idea, did she have a strategy for dealing with the family? Because bear in mind, when the kids disappeared, it's the same thing. What kind of story can she tell them? How is she going to handle it, right? And so Laurie responds with a sort of patronizing, "I'm sorry you are so upset. I'm so upset too. I'm trying to get JJ ready for bed." So that's kind of her excuse for not really being in touch. "I'm waiting to hear back from the medical examiner to make sense out of all of this myself." Now, there wasn't really any need to get back from the medical examiner because he didn't die of a heart attack. He was shot, and that would be very easy to say, but then not so easy to explain. Then she says, "Please be patient with me. It's a crushing situation all the way around." And here it comes again. "I'm still trying to process it too and what it means for JJ." Do you think that that is true? Now, although I don't believe Laurie believed that she didn't know how to handle things, and I'm not sure if many of you believe that, but I think it's interesting that she knew what words to use, what words to weave, to sort of make those around her believe what she wanted them to believe. And I think that is that sort of storytelling, that sort of crafting of a story, obviously in a conniving and mischievous way, is something that I think she had in common with Chad. She liked his storytelling. She understood his storytelling. She understood what it could do. But perhaps she had underestimated just how far you could take storytelling and just what kind of impact that might have on other people if you took storytelling, say, to the next level, just to a sort of biblical level, but even beyond that. And so I think in that simple statement lies the difference between the Lauries of this world and the critical thinkers. There are the Lauries who think they have it all figured out, even though they pretend that they don't. In fact, figured out so well, they think other people are simply pawns to use in their schemes. But I think it's the folks who truly, genuinely say to themselves, "I'm still not sure how to handle things," that are living in the real world, that are figuring out how to handle the real world and how the real world handles them, trying to figure out how the real world handles them. In the courtroom, it's clear Laurie's default setting for handling situations is pretense. That means play acting, pageantry, using appearances, wearing makeup wherever possible. And I can tell you, after 5 or 6 weeks traveling through America, one sees real places and real people constantly. And it reminds of this piece from the Idaho Statement, that Idaho Statesman that came out earlier this year, I think January 8th, 2023. This is a quote from that newspaper. The stories you're reading in the paper, the cases you're reviewing, the studies you're doing, it can become easy to forget that they're connected to real people, and it's the real world and real consequences. People lose people and find their kids' bed empty. There's a real heaviness looking at that and realizing and remembering this is not just some sterile academic subject. This is something that affects people. And although I experienced it firsthand, being in the courtroom myself and having traveled through America, I was through the sort of areas where Scott and Lacey Peterson were, where they studied, but other areas as well. One really gets a sense that this really happened. And obviously it really happened, but you get a real sense that no, this really happened. And when I was sitting in the courtroom in Boise, there were 2 visitors from Portland, a mother and her daughter. And when they actually saw Lori, walk into the court from kind of a side entrance, they actually audibly gasped. And it was like, she's real. And that is, I think, an important thing for people to experience as often as possible. That it's not some hypothetical subject, that all of this is really going on. But not only that, your life is also real. And so, if it was easy for Lori and Chad to lose track of the real world and real consequences, I have to tell you, the thing that got them off track wasn't cult beliefs. It wasn't religion. It wasn't some alien hodgepodge of concocted, contrived, magical thinking. No, it's the everyday magical thinking that's part and parcel of our everyday culture, of our everyday lives. Think about it. How much time do we spend per day immersed in the real world versus immersed in television, movies, music, social media, easy motoring, convenient entertainments, where things have sort of been a buffet of choices have been laid out for us, and we can just choose what we want. That's not the real world. The real world is sort of out in nature, where you've got to find things, where you've got to struggle. And today our struggle is deciding what we want to pay attention to. So all of these things in our daily lives are diversions and distractions. Even documentaries about the real world take us out of our real world into someone else's. Simply put, we live in a cultural reality where it's easy to be disconnected. It's as simple as that. And how does that reality tell us something about the Lori Vallow case? Well, I think what it does is it tells us, or it shows us, that it's also very easy to come up with attitudes and approaches to the world that suits us. In a world that feels not real, in a world that feels fictional, in a world that is basically at your convenience, why not just have whatever you believe convenient as well? So some of these attitudes and approaches to the world may be untested, they may be unproven, they may even be impractical. But because we're so far removed from reality and the consequences of reality, that hardly matters. Well, until it does, until cancer or dysfunction or old age or something like that intrudes into our carefully woven cocoons. Do you see, it's easy to be caught up in our own worlds, in our own words, in our own minds. Folks on their phones are basically caught up in an algorithm, and it's easy to see that when you see someone else. What about us? And so I think the way out of magical thinking is to do a very brave thing. Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do. If you're enjoying this episode, please like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started. Well, let's continue. So how do we get out of magical thinking? It's a subject that I've covered previously on this channel. And to do that, we've got to do a very brave thing, which is to be honest, to say and really mean it when we say, I'm still not sure how to handle things. If there's ever a reality to that, it's going to travel to another country. If you're sure how to handle things, you're going to get yourself into some difficulty. If you're not sure and you acknowledge that and you can communicate that, then you'll be okay. And if you're open to that, you'll be okay. It's when we're not sure that we're open to finding out what and how to do and to be. I'm not sure means we're curious and we're open to critical thinking and we're open to new information. I am sure means that we're not. Because Laurie and Chad were so sure, with that certainty that comes from being infatuated or lovelorn, they were like presenting themselves as the master of the universe to one another and to other people. That kind of certainty, we can see how that emotionally driven sense of the world can feel good. Certainty feels good. It feels right. But you can feel that way and yet be completely off track in terms of reality. Think about this case as feeling good, feeling right for some of the people at the center of it, but being completely off track in terms of reality. Again, I want to emphasize that in my many years researching, writing, and deep diving into true crime cases, the one thing that comes up in each and every case, without exception, is that the perpetrator was caught up in a fairy tale for themselves at the time that things went south. Name a true crime case, and there's a fairy tale that someone was fighting for or defending. There was a fairy tale that someone was caught up in. And this is why the antidote to criminal psychology is simply letting go of fairy tales. What are fairy tales? Well, it's unrealistic expectations of ourselves, unrealistic expectations of others, unrealistic expectations of the world, unrealistic ideas of what we are owed and what we can get away with. The recipe for disaster is to believe in fairy tales and get caught up in magical thinking. The scary part for me is how culturally we are designed to do just that. And even true crime channels, a lot of them cannot resist foisting the sort of content they know we want to hear instead of doing the harder job of showing us what's real. What is reality? Reality is that which, when you stop believing in it, doesn't go away. That's a quote by Philip K. Dick. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.
What makes you tick? Being a good mom is very important to me, and a good wife, and a good worker, and being all those things together is not easy. So I'm basically a ticking time bomb.